West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Let's bring in the counselor for William Roddy Bryant, Kevin Gough. Counselor, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here, Chris. How are you doing?
Better than I deserve. Why do you believe that the jury should not hold your client as responsible as the other two men?
Well, I don't really want to get into the details or try and summarize an hour and 45-minute closing argument. But, the question here is, when did Roddy Bryan know that the McMichaels were armed? When did Roddy Bryan know that they intended to shoot Mr. Arbery? And at that point, what could Mr. Bryan have done about it? Those were the three questions that I asked repeatedly, and we're still waiting for answers on that.
How do you expect them to get around the Georgia law that every person concerned in the commission of a crime is party thereto? Meaning, even if you don't have the gun, even if you don't pull the trigger, if you're part of what turns into a homicide, you are just as responsible as everybody else.
Well, and that's exactly what a good prosecutor would say and what a good prosecutor would argue. And I think we can agree that the Arbery family in this case is represented by some very capable attorneys from the Cobb County District Attorney's Office. But at the same time, Chris, given your legal background, I'm sure you appreciate that the parties to the crime statute, particularly the one in Georgia, in this situation would require that Roddy intentionally help them commit the crime. And he didn't do that. And that's what the evidence shows. At the time of this shooting, as I've said many times, Roddy Bryan was a witness to the shooting. And indeed, he is the witness to the shooting, and it's his video that will allow this jury to try and sort out what justice means in this case between the Arbery family and the McMichaels. And I've said all along, that's not for me to decide. That's not for Roddy Bryan to decide. That's above our pay grade. We got 12 jurors here. We got a great, diverse, very thoughtful, attentive jury. You've been watching them during the trial, I'm sure. They've been taking notes. They've been very diligent. They've now got the evidence, and they're going to deliberate. They're going to continue tomorrow. And, all we can do is hope and pray that they reach a true verdict. And I think that's all we can hope for from our criminal justice system and from these 12 fine men and women of Glynn County.
You got three problems. One, he was in one of the vehicles that was trying to stop Arbery. It becomes what you and I know as a chain of battery, that he became part of the behavior that wound up leading up to the shooting. We'll see what the jury thinks about that. One thing that you know, and I just want to make sure that the audience understands, the Arbery family doesn't have any lawyers in that courtroom. This isn't the Arbery family against the
Arbery
McMichaels.
family. The Arbery family is the most well-lawyered family in America right now.
Hold on.
I don't know where
Counselor,
you get that idea.
Counselor, this case is the prosecution on behalf of the people. This is a crime against the community. This isn't about Arbery's versus McMichael's. This is Arbery as a victim, and the crime is against the state. The crime is against the community. The crime is against the law.
Hold on, Chris. Hold on now. You've been watching the same trial I have. There are 3 very, very capable lawyers from the Cobb County District Attorney's Office sitting there at counsel table. Linda Dunikoski has lit the courtroom on fire every opportunity she gets. Paul, Larissa, they have all done an outstanding job. And that's just the 3 in the front of the courtroom. Maybe you've not been to Cobb County. Cobb County has an incredible district attorney's office. It's deep, it's well-staffed, it's well-funded.
And
these people are here and they mean business.
Yeah, but they're not there just for the Arbery's.
Have been incredibly well represented.
First of all, it's not. But I can't believe.
Well,
you're
you
saying
asking
this.
me about the.
I can't believe you're saying this. I really can't.
We can't believe what? That I'm standing up and acknowledging that the Cobb County DA's office has done an incredible job in this case?
That's not what you said. What you said was that the Arbery family has great lawyers. This isn't about just the Arbery's. This is about the whole community that was wronged when their laws are broken and someone is killed illegally.
In this case, the Cobb County District Attorney's Office represents the victim and their family in this case. And they are well represented.
They represent the people and they are advocates for the rights of the victim. You know that, and I feel like that takes me to my third point, which is, why are you trying to make this so intensely personal about Ahmaud Arbery? Why bring up black pastors and their presence in what you know is a public accommodation, being this courtroom, and that you don't have a say in who comes and who doesn't come and observe? Why make that point? Why do you think about pastors in terms of black and white?
I don't think of pastors in terms of black and white. And let's be clear, if you were in that courtroom sitting in my chair representing Roddy Bryant, you'd be doing exactly the same thing.
No, I wouldn't.
So if it helps you to make that point, you can. But if you were sitting there, you'd be doing exactly the same thing. As would
you know, you don't even have a right to do it.
Defense lawyer in America.
No, they wouldn't. To say you can't be in the gallery.
Really? Well,
to say I don't want black people in the gallery
based on the law that you're. I'm sorry, I didn't say that. We have no problem with black people being in the gallery. Never did, never will. Read the motions, Chris. Do the homework.
Black pastors?
Millions of Americans across this country are looking to you to understand these proceedings. Why don't you take the time and actually help them? Why don't you read the motions? Why don't you read the Supreme Court cases from the United States Supreme Court that we cited? Why don't you explain to the American people why the opinion of Supreme Court justices doesn't matter in this case? Because we think it does.
Counselor, saying a lot is not the same as saying something that matters. You can flood the zone. The interview doesn't end.
We can agree on that.
What I'm saying is this. There is no Supreme Court case that says you can make a determination of who can be in the gallery watching a trial on the basis of race. You and I both know that.
What
you
the
said
Supreme
black
Court
pastors.
has said is
you
that the right of a
confused
defendant to a
Jesse
fair
Jackson
trial
with
is
Al
paramount.
Sharpton, and it seemed at a minimum a fit of ignorance, and at maximum you making a race play in this trial. Were you not doing that?
Chris, you can call me ignorant. You can call me anything you want. But I'm here representing Roddy Bryant, and I'm going to defend my client to the best of my ability, and I don't really care whether the people in the cheap seats like it or not. I'm here for one person, and that's Roddy Bryant. That's my job, and I know you respect that. And I'm sorry that we disagree on this issue, but I'm not going to back down from insisting that Roddy Bryant receives a fair trial. And we have a judge who's working very hard to ensure that. The Cobb County DA's office is working very hard to ensure that. We have a sheriff here who's working very hard to ensure to make the best of a difficult situation. And I hope that you can appreciate all that effort. I'm pretty sure the Arbery family appreciates those efforts to ensure that their son receives a fair trial. And I hope everyone can appreciate that.
Any victim of a crime is supposed to get this kind of representation. The Arbery's just getting what's due somebody in this situation. And the judge felt no differently about what you said about black pastors than I'm presenting to you right now. And I'm not calling you ignorant. I'm saying the statement was. There's a difference. But, Counselor, I appreciate you.
Chris, let me put it to you this way.
Yeah.
If every time a police officer is killed, we're going to allow the police department to stack the courtroom with uniformed police officers, I think you'd agree that that would be inappropriate. Would you not?
I don't know that it would be inappropriate, but I know it's not an analogy. Having black pastors there to support the family, I don't think is going to have a chilling effect on a jury, nor should it. But, Counselor, I got to go.
Well,
I appreciate you taking the
well,
time.
we can respectfully disagree. Thank you for your time,
The only way to disagree is respectfully. Thank you for coming on the show. Kevin Gough, that's the counsel for Roddy Bryant.
It is Wednesday, the 24th of November of 2021, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Yes, this is the day when we pretty much put up a very lovely egg dish with an equally lovely and velvety hollandaise sauce. And the reason we call it hollandaise is because it comes from Holland. All right? Just letting you know. Yeah. And also, the day is commemorative of, getting rid of a bunch of meddlesome priests. And they don't necessarily have to be of the, shall we say, papal persuasion. Nope. Not at all. Hey, how are you doing? We're getting ready here out on the West Coast. Still quite dark, quite foggy, icy fog. Had a freeze morning, ice morning, and we're experiencing ice fog. All right. Well, first they burn us up, and then they inundate us with monsoon-type rains, with the attendant slides and all of that devastation. And now they're going to give us ice fog. And whoever they are, it's with a capital T. Just so you know. The T. Looks like Trump is still attempting to, take over the world? I think Putin's going to tell him, look, Donnie, slow down, Donnie. They're always trying to align themselves with, mobsters or whatever, even the film kind. And it's funny when people say, oh, well, Trump thinks that he's like Don Corleone when he's really, somebody else, not Fredo, but he's not Don Corleone. And I'm thinking, no, he actually, Trump reminds me of Mo Green. Do you know who I am? I'm Mo Green. But no one's going to, identify with someone not all the way running the show. And that was, the Marlon Brando character, Don Corleone. And then Michael came. Yes. So these are mobsters. They have no real, grasp of reality. Because what is reality? I'll tell you what reality is. It's getting along with your neighbor without killing them. Because you don't like what they're doing or you want what they have. Mobsters don't care about that. Okay? That's why they call us boring. We law-abiders. We're boring. Really? Well, you might get out in the woods and find some excitement because it is there. And the only time they go out of the woods, I don't know, is to bury the bodies in shallow graves. They're so lazy. It's always a shallow grave with these losers. Damn. All right. And we're somehow allowing half of the population. It's not really half. Okay? Let's remind ourselves of that. It's really more like a third. As always, except now this third has guns, and a lot more, too, apparently. Tanks, and a lot of, embedded partners in law enforcement and the military. Are we in trouble? I would think so. It is curious, and I'll get back to what I was trying to get to. But I just want to make this point because I've been noticing a bit about how it is to live in America. And it is really no different than back in the day. There are still people who want to be, shall we say, somnolent, asleep. Others might call it apathetic. Still others may call it ignorant. A choice to be ignorant, by the way. And, let's just veg out. Don't worry about it, man. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Really? So you're not going to get out of the way of the rolling boulder coming down the hillside. It's just going to happen. Look, we were given volition for a reason. Oh no, did I just advocate a supreme being? Anyway, whether it was by accident in the universe or, I don't know, design, the hand of you-know-who, we have volition. Are we just going to... I think maybe what they're saying is they want to have as much volition. They do not want to have as much volition as a rock. Because a rock has much more volition than a lot of people want to have, at least Americans. So it's a little scary because lots of bad things can happen because people choose to be ignorant about it and then deny it's happening. Wow, is that human nature? I sure hope not. I think that's a learned behavior. Anyway, whatever I was trying to get to before, it doesn't matter because we have a fully curated show for you today. And there's enough going on in the world that, sometimes we erect a bubble so that we can attend to the news that we already have, Some people can process it all and then put it out, but, we decided on a little formula. And it's better to stick to it because it can ground us and center us. And I say us in the royal us, like we. Okay? Oh, boy. I'm a little peeved about the practice of law in some of these trials. Now, I don't mean effectual or ineffectual practice of the law. I'm talking about the abject racism. And there's no pushback. Well, there is pushback, but I wish that it was a bit more robust, shall we say. And, this Arbery trial has me worried a little bit. Now, of course, I don't know what's going on since we put ourselves in the bubble this morning. They did break to go home last night, and I believe they're coming back today. They're not coming back on Monday, are they? Anyway, they did take a break. I believe they're back today. I have a bad feeling. What is there to debate? Other than they're going to take serious that the neighborhood, through a process of, a mob mentality, a mass delusion, work themselves up in such a frenzy. And we've seen this on the Twilight Zone. They've had a dozen stories on this particular theme where a neighborhood works themselves up in a frenzy and the first outsider that comes in, they kill them. Oh my God, it's the monster. They had worked themselves up in such a frenzy on their little chats on Facebook and Nextdoor and these other weird, platforms that have been taken over by the crazies. And I know I'm sorry. I'm just tired of psychopathic, violent, mentally ill people, insane, crazies, running the show. I'm sorry. Okay? Now I'm talking about a particular subset of crazy here. So don't get on my case because I'm being disrespectful to crazy people. Because in a way I am. Because the definition of being crazy is not dealing with things rationally. And part of a rational response is, not killing your neighbor. I like that. Anyway, I'm a bit concerned because if this is a jury of their peers, then the peers, by definition, would hold the same sentiments now, wouldn't they? The crazy sentiments of, I have worked myself up in a frenzy about black people in particular, going to that house, and they must be doing something criminal. They must be. And that one. So is the jury going to buy this? They're debating that a guy jogging through doing nothing different than what anybody else was doing about the house being developed for sale. I got to tell you how many times I've been on properties checking them out while they were under development for real estate purposes or curiosity. How would I do that? Oh, that's how they do it. Oh, cool. Okay. Now I know. And they keep calling Arbery a kid. He's not really a kid. He's a full-grown man. Now, let's be clear. I call him kids because we're of a certain age now. Damn it. Anyway, the neighborhood worked themselves up apparently in a frenzy. Now, that's a defense. They were scared. So they had to kill a black guy just running through the neighborhood who happens to pretty much live in the neighborhood. Jeez. Okay. Jury of their peers. Peer by definition means you hold the similar sentiments. I thought it was the sentiments about justice, equal protection, due process for all. And all means, yes, we the people. Ahmaud Arbery is also of we the people versus those murderous, vigilante, racist bigots in their trucks chasing down a black guy, tire him out, and then shoot him. Where have we heard that before? Yes, that is the nostalgia they aspire to, that they want to come back. No, thank you. Not allowed. Okay. What's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy as we begin? Well, have we really begun? I think we've already quite begun the day here. But on the rest of the menu, we already talked about that Kevin Gough. That's what I'm talking about. This Kevin Gough attorney. I'm tired of these, well, excuse me. But he's a cracker attorney, and he's doing quite well. But I don't know. I'm a little worried, but maybe there are some members of the jury saying, what? We can't get away with this anymore. Got to shape up. Let's hope they come to that realization. On the rest of the menu in the Bistro Cafe, many environmentalists back Biden's move to tap the U.S. oil reserve. Many, not all, but many. The Justice Department filed a lawsuit seeking to block a major U.S. sugar manufacturer from acquiring its rival, arguing that the deal would harm competition. Now, isn't that sweet? I know. It's a dad joke. And a federal jury has held that CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart pharmacies recklessly distributed massive amounts of pain pills in 2 Ohio counties. After the break, we move to the chef's table where Australia intends to add the far-right extremist group, the Base. Far-right extremist group is a nice way of calling them neo-Nazis, just so we're clear. And the entirety of the Lebanese group Hezbollah to its list of outlawed terrorist organizations. And Belarus banned the nation's oldest newspaper as being extremist. That's how bad it's gotten. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you'll notice the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. And get well, Kelly. All right. Thank you for taking care of everything. To the left of the chat room link across the page at our homepage at netrootsradio.com is the link to our Patreon site. And if you could afford to send us the equivalent of what you might spend on, say, how about an espresso type coffee drink? If you could send those funds to us once a month, it really helps us, pay our bills. That's right. We have bills to pay, and they increase. And also the hardware and software needed to keep this powerhouse of resistance resisting, as we have for, guess what, going on 11 years. It'll only be a few months, and we'll be at the 11-year mark of 24/7, 365 resistance broadcasting. And we do it because we have a civic duty, and it sounds like a joke, a little bit of tongue-in-cheek, but it's not. We take it quite seriously. And thank you for your generosity in allowing us to fulfill that civic duty that the founders originally intended so many years ago. Okay, so if you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, you can do that by going to @NetrootsRadio. And Tom takes care of that and so much more. Thanks, Tom. Follow me on Twitter @JusticePutnam. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime, then get that linked up and posted on Twitter and those other social media platforms. Yes, you know who they are. And the show notes and links are very important. Okay, I want to make that clear. Follow the show on Twitter @Cookbook West and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever podcasts can be found. I guess maybe a little bit of station news. Maybe I should mention, it's the holiday. So there will be a bit of holiday programming because a lot of folks are taking the holidays off. And so we will fill in a mix of regular and holiday programming because that's how it will be. And presumably we'll have a show tomorrow because it's early enough in the morning. And, I can just heat up the oven while we're doing the show. We could probably do that. But regardless, be prepared for some fantastic regular and holiday programming through the weekend. And so there's that. Thank you. All right, let's tuck in to this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. It's out of the Associated Press by Matthew Daly. Democrats and climate activists generally supported President Joe Biden's decision to release a record 50 million barrels of oil from America's strategic reserve, even as the move appeared to contradict his long-term vision of combating climate change. The U.S. action, announced on Tuesday yesterday in coordination with countries such as India, the UK, and China, is aimed at global energy markets and helping lower gasoline prices that have risen more than $1 per gallon since January. Somebody's making a lot of money. But it could also undermine Biden's climate goals, including a 50% cut in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. I don't think so. Some leading climate hawks, however, said they were not concerned by the move because they see it as a short-term fix to meet a specific problem. See? Senator Ed Markey, Democrat of Massachusetts, who has focused on combating climate change, said Biden was taking effective action to protect Americans from oil price gouging, even as the administration continues to boost renewable energy that it hopes will eventually mean less dependence on fossil fuels. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve, of course, as we all know, is an emergency stockpile to preserve access to oil in case of natural disasters, national security issues, and other events. Maybe this is other events, but I actually think it's national security. Maintained by the Energy Department, the reserves are stored in caverns created in salt domes along the Texas and Louisiana Gulf Coasts. There are roughly 605 million barrels of petroleum in the reserve. Do we really want our enemies to know that? I guess they do now. Of course, on the other hand, it might just be speaking softly, and carrying a big stick. Next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays, is also out of the Associated Press, and this time by Michael Balsamo. The Justice Department filed a lawsuit yesterday, Tuesday, seeking to block a major U.S. sugar manufacturer from acquiring its rival, arguing that allowing the deal would harm competition and consumers. The suit was filed in federal court in Delaware. It comes about 8 months after U.S. Sugar announced it reached an agreement to acquire the Imperial Sugar Company, one of the largest sugar refiners in the nation. The lawsuit is the latest example of the Justice Department's approach to aggressive enforcement of federal antitrust law that officials say is aimed at ensuring a fair and competitive market. It comes months after President Joe Biden signed an executive order that called on the Justice Department and the Federal Trade Commission to vigorously enforce antitrust statutes and promote market competition. I would hope that Mark Zuckerberg would take note. Robust antitrust enforcement is an essential pillar of the Justice Department's commitment to ensuring economic opportunity and fairness for all, Attorney General Merrick Garland said in a statement. We will not hesitate to challenge anti-competitive mergers that would harm American consumers and businesses alike. Well, it's about time. U.S. Sugar said it plans to fight the lawsuit. It argued that the acquisition will increase production and distribution of refined sugar and provide a more secure supply, and they get to make all the money and keep it themselves. This transaction will improve supply chain logistics and will not result in higher prices or any harm to consumers and customers, the company said in a statement. We look forward to making our case in court. Well, the Justice Department disagreed. It says the proposed acquisition would further consolidate an already concentrated market for refined sugar. It would cut down on competition, leaving only the new consolidated company and one other major sugar company selling a significant share of refined sugar in the southeastern U.S. And the Justice Department says U.S. Sugar, which operates a large refinery in Florida, sells all of its sugar through a marketing cooperative known as the United Sugars Corporation. Imperial Sugar operates a refinery in Savannah, Georgia, and a sugar transfer and liquidation facility in Ludlow, Kentucky. Assistant Attorney General Jonathan Cantor, who leads the Justice Department's Antitrust Division, said the companies were seeking to further consolidate an already cozy sugar industry. John Seawer of the Associated Press brings us this final offering in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart pharmacies recklessly distributed massive amounts of pain pills in 2 Ohio counties. A federal jury said yesterday, Tuesday, in a verdict, they could set the tone for U.S. city and county governments that want to hold pharmacies accountable for their roles in the opioid crisis. Lake and Trumbull counties blame the 3 chain pharmacies for not stopping the flood of pills that caused hundreds of overdose deaths and cost each of the 2 counties about $1 billion each. Said their attorney, who in court compared the pharmacies' dispensing to a gumball machine. How much the pharmacies must pay in damages will be decided in the spring by a federal judge. It's the first time pharmacy companies completed a trial to defend themselves in a drug crisis that killed 500,000 Americans over the past 2 decades. The counties convinced the jury that the pharmacies played an outsized role in creating a public nuisance in the way they dispensed pain medication into their communities. Attorneys for the pharmacy chains maintained they had policies to stem the flow of pills when their pharmacists had concerns and would notify authorities about suspicious orders from doctors. They also said it was doctors who controlled how many pills were prescribed for legitimate medical needs. CVS Health, Walgreens Company, and Walmart Inc. said they will appeal. Indeed they will. And that brings us to our break, and why don't we? And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take 2 Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, The Trouble with Troubles. Well, Kenneth Branagh's new movie Belfast is placed in that city in the late 1960s, the era of the violent, sectarian so-called troubles there. It's really more of a coming-of-age story, and an autobiographical one at that. So in a project like this, the needle that requires threading is to not trivialize or whitewash a truly horrific period, but also not to make dark and bloody drama not suitable for holiday release. The way that's done here is by making a family-centric movie with fairly low narrative stakes and just enough era ambiance to keep it at least not divorced from reality. The story here is told from the point of view of Buddy, a 10-year-old, about Branagh's age in '69, whose perception of the theological Catholic-Protestant dispute is actually quite precious. His caring parents argue, but never to the point of ugliness. He has adorable and wise grandparents, with these characters brought off by Katrina Balfe as Buddy's mom, Judi Dench as his grandmother, Jamie Dornan as the dad, and the Irish patriarch standard-bearer Kieran Hines as grandpa. And they all do a fine job, even if you've seen these characters before. The shooting here is black and white with color reserved for certain scenes like trips to the movies. Musical direction is from Belfast native Van Morrison, who places several of his own radio hits early on. Seems somebody noticed this after they'd been cut in, and in later acts we get other music. And to seal the autobiographical hints, maybe overmuch, we see Buddy reading a Thor comic. We all idealize our youth, so it's probably unreasonable to expect a filmmaker not to as well. The acting, directing, and cinematography in Belfast rescue it from the saccharine, but not by much. This has been Take 2 Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at Take2MovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Welcome to A Cup of Health with CDC, a weekly feature of the MMWR, the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. I'm your host, Dr. Robert Gaines. As fall turns to winter, the flu season will be upon us in force. The best way to avoid influenza is to get immunized. Dr. Joe Brazee is a researcher with CDC's National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases. He's joining us today to discuss the importance of getting the flu vaccine. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Thank you.
Joe, let's start with how long does the flu season last?
In general, flu seasons will last for several months in the United States at the national level. Each year it begins in the fall, usually peaks between January and March, and ends in the spring. But the timing of flu season is unpredictable, especially at the local level. So because we can't tell for sure when it will start, when it will peak, and when it will end in every community, we want to make sure that people get vaccinated as early as possible when the flu vaccines become available in the late summer and early fall.
Well, who should get vaccinated?
Everyone 6 months of age and older should get vaccinated against the flu each and every year. This is especially important for people at high risk of complications or severe flu if they get infected.
Which groups are at higher risk for complications from the flu?
Well, some people are at especially higher risk for severe flu or complications. These are people who are very young, like kids under 5 years of age, anybody 65 years and older, and people with underlying health disorders like heart disease, lung disease, kidney disease, or diseases of the immune system, and pregnant women.
Joe, how effective is the vaccine for preventing flu?
Well, vaccine is the single best way to protect you and your family from the flu each year. Most years, the vaccine reduces a person's chance of getting the flu and complications from the flu by about 50 to 70%. But how well it works can vary from season to season and by person. So remember that vaccine is one of 3 ways you can protect yourself against the flu. The other ones are good hygiene, like hand washing, covering your cough, staying home when you're sick, and finally medications. There are medications that your doctor can prescribe to treat the flu if you get it.
Are there any side effects from getting vaccinated?
Well, there are 2 types of flu vaccines. First, the shots. The most common side effects with the flu shots are soreness or redness in your arm for a day or 2 after getting the vaccine. The nasal spray vaccines can cause runny nose or congestion or low-grade fever in some people for, again, about a day or 2 after getting the vaccine. So these side effects are mild compared with the disease itself, which causes hundreds of thousands of hospitalizations and tens of thousands of deaths each year in the United States. Remember that the vaccine is the safest and most effective way to prevent flu each and every year.
Joe, where can listeners get more information about the flu vaccine?
We'll go to cdc.gov/flu.
Thanks, Joe. I've been talking today with CDC's Dr. Joe Brazee about the annual flu vaccine. Remember, everyone 6 months and older should be vaccinated. To get your annual flu vaccine, see your healthcare provider or go to a pharmacy, grocery store, or clinic in your area. If you get influenza, talk with your healthcare provider right away about antiviral medication. Until next time, be well. This is Dr. Robert Gaines for A Cup of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
I'm probably okay to have one more drink before I drive home. I'm probably okay. I open the window to stay alert. Probably okay. I just popped some gum in my mouth.
Step out of the car, please.
I probably made a mistake.
Probably okay isn't okay when it comes to drinking and driving. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
As a writer, I get stuck every so often straining for the right words to tell my story. Over the years, though, I've learned when to quit tying myself into mental knots over sentence construction, instead stepping back and rethinking where my story is going. This process is essentially what millions of American working families are going through this year, as record numbers of them are shocking bosses, politicians, and economists by stepping back and declaring, "We quit." Most of the quits are tied to very real abuses that have become ingrained in our workplaces over the past couple of decades. Poverty paychecks, no health care, unpredictable schedules, no child care, understaffing, forced overtime, unsafe jobs, sexist and racist managers, tolerance of aggressively rude customers, and so awful much more. Specific grievances abound, but at the core of each is a deep, inherently destructive executive suite malignancy, disrespect. The corporate system has cheapened employees from valuable human assets worthy of being nurtured and advanced to a bookkeeping expense that must be steadily eliminated. It's not just about paychecks. It's about feeling valued, feeling that the hierarchy gives a damn about the people doing the work. Yet, corporate America is going out of its way to show that it doesn't care. And of course, workers notice. So unionization is booming. Millions who were laid off by the pandemic are refusing to rush back to the same old grind, and now millions who have jobs are quitting. This is much more than an unusual unemployment stat. It's a sea change in people's attitude about work itself and life. This is Jim Hightower saying people are rethinking where their story is going and how they can take it in a better direction. Yes, nearly everyone will eventually return to work, but workers themselves have begun redefining the job and rebalancing it with life. Howdy-ho, folks. Thanks for tuning in and sharing my weekly commentaries. Also, please join me for a live web show I host every other Tuesday, the Hightower Lowdown Happy Hour at the Chat and Chew Cafe. You can join the action live online as I chat with grassroots leaders and progressive sparklies from around the country. Go to hightowerlowdown.org/chat-and-chew to find out about upcoming guests and watch past episodes. That's hightowerlowdown.org/chat-and-chew.
Welcome to 60 Second Civics, the daily podcast of the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. Over the next few episodes, we will explore the evolution of British constitutional government, especially as it relates to the American colonies and American constitutionalism. Americans lived as British subjects for more than 150 years until they declared independence in 1776. They enjoyed, at least notionally, the rights of Englishmen, and when Americans declared independence from British authority, they listed examples of rights that had been violated by the king. But how did British law and government begin? A diverse group of tribes inhabited Britain before the Roman invasion of 43 AD. The Romans occupied England until roughly 410 AD, ruling an area they called Britannia, which was divided into 4 provinces, each of which was administered by a governor. During this period, Rome ruled through military force, but some English aristocracy and later most of Britannia had Roman citizenship. This only amounted to half the island, however. Most of Scotland remained out of Roman control. Germanic invasions around 410 AD led to the isolation of Roman Britain and the collapse of Roman government there. That's all for today's podcast, 60 Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
Can you be arrested for flipping a cop the bird?
Listen up. This matters. I'm Louis Black, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute with ACLU attorney Bill Newman.
On February 9, 2018, Vermont State Trooper Jay Riggins stopped a motorist, St. Albans, Vermont resident Gregory Bombard, because the trooper thought the motorist had flipped him the bird. But Bombard denied giving him a middle finger salute. So after haranguing and interrogating the motorist, the trooper let him go, at which point Bombard really did give him the middle finger. In response to which the trooper really did pull the motorist over again and arrest him for disorderly conduct, a charge eventually thrown out of court. In February 2021, the Vermont affiliate of the ACLU sued the trooper for violating Bombard's constitutional rights to free expression and to not be subjected to an unreasonable search and seizure, the stopping of his car. Flipping off a cop may be rude, but cops can't arrest you for allegedly hurting their feelings. Well, actually they can, but they shouldn't, because courts throughout the country have consistently held that any reasonable officer would know that a person who raises her or his middle finger engages in First Amendment protected speech. Or as Vermont ACLU attorney Jay Diaz explained, Vermonters who want to protest the actions of police through words or gestures have a constitutionally protected right to do so.
The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the American Civil Liberties Union because freedom can't defend itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1947. That was the day that the U.S. House of Representatives found 10 Hollywood writers and directors in contempt for alleged ties to communism. The decision was based on the House Un-American Activity Committee's finding the 10 to be in contempt the week before. More than 40 screenwriters, directors, and producers were brought before the committee to testify about the allegations of rampant communist activities in the movie-making industry. During the Cold War, fear of communism reached a fevered pitch. This included the fear that communists were infiltrating Hollywood to spread their message to the public through the movies. 10 refused to answer the committee's questions or to name names of other potential communists. Each of the 10 was fined $1,000, sentenced to a year in prison, and blacklisted from working in Hollywood. Perhaps the most well-known of the 10 was one of Hollywood's leading screenwriters, Dalton Trumbo. He served 11 months in federal prison for refusing to cooperate. While he was blacklisted, he wrote the screenplay for Roman Holiday, the romantic film starring Gregory Peck and Audrey Hepburn. Since Trumbo could not take credit for the film, another screenwriter friend put his name on it. Roman Holiday won the 1953 Academy Award for Best Screenplay. 3 years later, another Trumbo script, The Brave One, also received the Academy Award. Finally, in 1960, Trumbo worked on Stanley Kubrick's acclaimed film Spartacus. Kubrick refused to remove Trumbo from the credits, busting the blacklist. In 2015, actor Bryan Cranston starred in a film about Trumbo's life. During the House Un-American Activities Committee hearings, the Screen Actors Guild passed a resolution that members had to disavow any ties to the Communist Party. They also elected actor Ronald Reagan president of their union. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 32 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high of only about 48 today. Foggy conditions, and as I mentioned, ice fog. And we'll have cloudy skies a little bit later, then partly cloudy this afternoon, and winds will be light and variable. Partly cloudy skies tonight, lows around 35. Winds will remain light and variable, then considerable cloudiness on Thanksgiving Day. Highs in the mid-50s. Winds light and variable, and it doesn't look like we have any forecast of rain for a bit of time, which is good because I need to have this cement and all these walkways coated as they were promised when we had some dry days. Let's hope they're dry enough. Anyway, pollen is rated as none right outside the window in Rogue River proper. The air quality index is good at 21 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is rated low at level 1. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.4 inches. Visibility is down to 1/4 mile. That is a quarter mile. A quarter mile. And relative humidity is at 100%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that are crowd sources from around the world. London is 45 and cloudy. Paris is 42 and partly cloudy. Rome is 63 and sunny. Kyiv is 38 and cloudy. Kabul, remember Kabul, they're 46 and cloudy. Hong Kong is 60 degrees and clear. Tokyo is 50 degrees and clear. Sydney, Australia is 68 with a light rain. San Francisco, California is 50 degrees and sunny. And New York, New York is a very chilly 37 degrees Fahrenheit. But they're sunny as hell. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Rod McGurk of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Australia today said it intends to add far-right extremist group The Base and the entirety of the Lebanese group Hezbollah to its list of outlawed terrorist organizations as national security services grapple with a surge in neo-Nazi cells and other ideologically motivated extremists. I should remind folks that The Base in Arabic is Al-Qaeda, just so you know. The Base, a neo-Nazi white supremacist group formed in the United States in 2018, would become only the second far-right group to be designated a terrorist organization in Australia after the British-based Sonnenkrieg division was listed in August. Home Affairs Minister Karen Andrews issued that in a statement. The remaining 25 terrorist organizations on Australia's list are Islamist groups, including Hezbollah's External Security Organization, which was designated under Australia's Criminal Code in 2003, including The Base and all Hezbollah entities as terrorist organizations, would make being a member of or supporting those entities a criminal offense.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Uris Carmenow of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Belarus's oldest newspaper was banned on the 115th anniversary of its founding. Yesterday, Tuesday, the latest move in the government's relentless crackdown on independent media in the ex-Soviet Union. The Nasha Niva newspaper was outlawed as extremist by the Central District Court in Minsk, which acted upon the request of the Ministry of Information. The ruling will expose anyone who would publish or repost Nasha Niva materials to prison terms of up to 7 years. The Belarusian authorities blocked the online newspaper in July, arrested its chief editor and a journalist, Andrei Skurko, who have remained in custody. Overall, 29 Belarusian journalists are in custody, serving their sentences or awaiting trial. Guess what's going to happen here? Most other Nasha Niva journalists have left the country and continue to publish the newspaper online, changing its domain to bypass the blocking. Well, good for them. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you do know Netroots Radio will broadcast on, and we're going to meet up here tomorrow for Thanksgiving Day morning. That's right, for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays Thanksgiving Day morning. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin l'âge tombe, nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. De novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tombe, nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.